If you refuse me, I won't live. She wasn't pleading. She was stating a fact, and that was what made him stop. The wind dragged across the high desert of New Mexico, rattling the loose boards of the corral as dusk bled into the horizon. A place where men disappeared, and no one came looking. Jonah Hale stood beside his horse, one hand gripping the reins, frozen mid-step. He had heard desperate words before, begging, crying, lies dressed up as truth. But never like this. Never from someone who looked already gone. She stood just beyond the barn's shadow, still, upright, watching him. Her dress was torn, dust-stained from miles of walking. Boots cracked at the seams, hands scraped raw. But her eyes? They were wrong. Too calm, too certain, like she had already stepped past fear into something colder. "I don't take in strangers," Jonah said. His voice came out flat, practiced, the kind of voice that had learned not to care. "Especially ones who start with death." She didn't react, didn't flinch, didn't argue. "It's not about me," she said. "It's about what happens after you say no." Silence stretched between them, long enough for instinct to start speaking. Jonah narrowed his eyes. He had built this place far from everything, for a reason. Men came with trouble, and trouble never came alone. "What's your name?" A flicker, just a second. "Maeve. That's all you get." He studied her, searching for cracks, for lies, for anything that made this simple. But there was nothing simple about her, only exhaustion, and something heavier beneath it. "Maeve," he repeated slowly. "What's chasing you?" This time, she didn't answer right away. Her gaze shifted, not to him, but past him, toward the open land behind the ranch. "They don't chase," she said. "They arrive." Something cold slid into Jonah's chest. "You need to leave." He turned slightly, already done. "You're already too late," she said. He stopped again, slower this time. "What does that mean?" She took one step closer, and the last light of day caught her face. That's when he saw it. The bruise along her jaw, fading yellow, old enough to hurt, recent enough to matter. "It means," she said, "you were the last place I could go. And now, they know where I am." The ranch fell quiet, too quiet. Jonah didn't move, didn't breathe. Because suddenly, this wasn't about a stranger anymore. This was about a choice. Let her stay and invite something he couldn't see, or send her away and wonder what would follow anyway. He exhaled slowly, the kind of breath a man takes before everything changes. "One night," he said. "That's all." Maeve nodded once. No relief, no gratitude. Like she already knew it wouldn't end there. The knock never came. And somehow, that made it worse. Jonah woke before dawn, not because of a sound, but because of the absence of one. No wind against the walls, no loose boards creaking, no distant coyotes. Just silence. The wrong kind. He sat up slowly, every instinct pulling tight in his chest. Men like him didn't ignore silence. They listened to it. Across the room, Maeve was still there, curled in the chair, not resting, waiting. Even in sleep, her fingers were clenched tight around the empty cup. Jonah stood without a sound, reaching for the rifle beside the door. He moved to the window, lifting the curtain just enough. Nothing. Then, tracks. Fresh, deep, cutting across the dirt like a warning carved into the earth itself. They led straight from the ridge, down past the outer fence, toward the house. Too clean to be slew, too direct to be wandering. Jonah's jaw tightened. They found you. Behind him, Maeve's voice came quietly. I told you. They don't stop. He turned fast. She was already awake, standing now. No fear, no confusion, just readiness. How long? He asked. She rolled her shoulders slightly, wincing. A day behind me, she said. Maybe less. Jonah glanced back out the window. They're closer than that. The weight of it settled fast. No more guessing. No more maybe. This was happening. You need to leave, Jonah said sharply. Back trail, East Ridge. Move fast. You might outrun them. Maeve didn't move. I'm not running anymore. That's not courage, he snapped. That's dying slow. Her eyes locked onto his. No, she said. Last night was. That hit him harder than it should have. Then why come here? His voice dropped. Why bring this to my door? She didn't hesitate. Because you're the kind of man who doesn't look away. Jonah clenched his jaw. You don't know me. I know enough. Then, a sound. Faint, controlled. Hooves. Jonah turned back to the window. One rider, moving steady, not fast, not cautious, certain. Maeve stepped closer. Her voice tightened just slightly. That's not better. Jonah exhaled slowly. No, he said. It's worse. Because one man meant he didn't need help. Whoever was coming already knew how this would end. Jonah lowered the curtain, turned back toward her. Get ready, he said. I told you not to run. He stepped closer now, voice lower, harder. Maeve held his gaze. I am surviving. Right here. The sound outside grew louder, closer, heavier. No rush, no hesitation, like a man arriving, not searching. Jonah stepped past her, pushing the door open. Cold morning air cut through the room. He didn't look back. Stay behind me. Maeve followed anyway. Outside, the sky was pale, the land stretched empty, and at the edge of the gate, a man waited, still, watching. And just like that, the quiet life Jonah Hale had built was over. The man didn't move. That was the first thing Jonah noticed. No shifting in the saddle, no nervous glance, no hand tightening on the reins. Just stillness. The kind that didn't belong to ordinary men. Dust drifted slowly across the ground between them, caught in the space where something was about to break. Jonah stepped forward, rifle lowered, but not by much. You're a long way from anywhere, he called out. The man smiled faintly. I could say the same to you. His voice was smooth, too smooth, like this wasn't a hunt, just a conversation he already controlled. Jonah's eyes narrowed. Turn around, he said. Whatever you're looking for isn't here. The man's gaze shifted, slowly, past him, to Maeve. There you are. Maeve's fingers tightened behind Jonah's back. That was enough. Jonah adjusted his stance, placing himself fully between them. You heard me. The man tilted his head slightly, studying him now. And who are you supposed to be? Doesn't matter. It does to me. Because now, His eyes sharpened just a fraction. "You're standing between me and something that belongs to my employer." Maeve stepped forward slightly. "I'm not a thing." The man looked at her again, amused. "No," he said softly. "You're a liability." Jonah's grip tightened on the rifle. "She stays." The man sighed, almost disappointed. "That's unfortunate." His hand moved, fast, too fast for most men, but not for Jonah. The rifle snapped up. "Don't!" 1 second. 2. The wind dragged harder now, pulling dust between them like a line drawn in the dirt. The man slowly raised his hands, not surrendering, just pausing. "You don't understand what you're stepping into," he said quietly. Jonah didn't blink. "Then explain it, from there." A faint smile returned. "Fair enough." The man shifted slightly in the saddle. "She saw something. Something valuable." "I didn't take anything," Maeve said. "No," he agreed. "But you remember." Jonah felt it then, that shift, from trouble to something worse. "Remember what?" he asked. Maeve stayed silent. The man answered instead. "A meeting. Names. Faces. Arrangements that weren't meant to exist." Jonah's expression hardened. "This isn't my business." The man nodded slowly. "It wasn't. Then. But now it is." The air thickened, heavy, waiting, the kind of silence that came right before blood. Jonah glanced back at Maeve, just once. "Last chance," he muttered. She shook her head. "I'm done running." Something in Jonah snapped into place. Not anger, not fear. Decision. He turned forward again, grip steady, eyes locked. "Then neither am I." The man on the horse watched him for a long moment. Then slowly, he smiled again. Not amused this time. Interested. "All right," he said softly. "Let's see how far you're willing to go." And just like that, the line had been crossed. No turning back. No quiet life waiting on the other side. Only whatever came next. The man didn't reach for his gun again. That was what made Jonah uneasy. Most men, when stopped, either backed down or pushed harder. This one just watched. Like he had time. Too much time. "You're making this harder than it needs to be," the rider said calmly. Jonah didn't lower the rifle. "Then you picked the wrong place." The man let out a quiet breath, almost amused. "No," he said. "I picked the only place she would run to." That landed, harder than it should have. Jonah's eyes flicked, just for a second, toward Maeve. She didn't deny it. "You knew I was here?" Jonah asked. The man shrugged slightly. "We know men like you. Men who think distance makes them invisible. It doesn't." Jonah felt something tighten in his chest. This wasn't random. This was chosen. Then, a sound. Not hooves. Something else. Subtle. Hidden. Jonah's head tilted slightly, just enough to listen. "You bring friends?" The man smiled again. "I told you," he said softly. "We don't chase." Jonah's grip tightened. They arrive. Movement. Not one direction. Several. From the ridge. From the far fence line. From behind the dry creek bed. Too quiet for amateurs. Too coordinated for chance. Jonah exhaled slowly. They're already here. Maeve didn't answer. She already knew. 3 figures emerged first, then another, then another. shadows stepping into shape until the empty land wasn't empty anymore. 6 men, all armed, all watching, not rushing, waiting, like wolves circling, not because they were unsure, but because they were patient. Jonah adjusted his stance slightly, not enough to show fear, just enough to account for angles. "You planning to talk all day?" he said. "Or is this where it gets stupid?" The rider chuckled under his breath. "You're outnumbered." "Then you better hope I miss." That earned a real reaction, a flicker, because they could see it now. Jonah wasn't bluffing. He wasn't scared enough. "Last offer," the rider said. "You walk away," he nodded toward Maeve. "We take her. And you go back to your quiet little life." Jonah didn't move, didn't even look back this time. Not happening. Maeve's breath caught slightly behind him, not from fear, from something else. The rider's smile faded. "You don't even know what she carries." "I know enough." "And what's that?" Jonah's voice dropped. "That if you want her this bad, you're worse than whatever she's running from." That did it. The air snapped tight. One of the men shifted his weight, another adjusted his grip. Tiny movements, but they changed everything. This was no longer a warning. This was the edge. Maeve stepped closer behind Jonah. "Jonah," her voice low, urgent. "They won't stop." "I know. You can still walk away." He didn't answer right away. Then, "No. I made that choice last night." The rider watched him for a long moment. Then slowly, he reached down. Not for his gun, for something else. A folded paper, sealed. He held it up. "Then maybe this changes your mind." He tossed it. The paper landed in the dirt, just a few feet from Jonah's boots. Jonah didn't pick it up immediately, didn't look away from the man. "Go on," the rider said softly. "Take a look." Slowly, Jonah bent down, keeping the rifle trained, and picked it up. He broke the seal, unfolded it, and the moment he read it, something in his face changed. Not fear, something colder. Recognition. "They know you," Maeve said quietly. Jonah didn't answer, because now he understood something he hadn't before. This wasn't about her anymore. They hadn't just come for Maeve. They had come for him. The wind didn't stop, but everything else did. No one moved, no one spoke, because now they all knew something had changed. Jonah folded the paper once, carefully, like it mattered, then slipped it into his coat. "You should have stayed gone," the rider said. Jonah looked up. "You should have forgotten my name." Maeve's breath caught behind him. "Jonah." He didn't turn. "Not now." The man on the horse studied him differently now, not like a rancher, like a problem that had come back. "You were harder to find than we expected," the rider said. "Man like you doesn't just disappear." Jonah's grip on the rifle tightened, just slightly. "Man like me doesn't get found unless someone talks." The rider smiled. "People always talk. Eventually." Maeve stepped closer. "You knew this was coming," she whispered. Jonah exhaled slowly. "I knew something would. Just didn't think it'd be today." The men around them shifted again, no longer waiting, positioning, closing angles, preparing. The rider sighed. "This doesn't have to end badly," he said. "Give us the girl, and you walk away." Jonah almost laughed. Almost. "You don't get it," he said quietly. I already made that mistake once. Not making it again. That was the moment it broke. One of the men moved, just a fraction too fast. Jonah fired. The sound tore through the morning, echoing across the empty land. The man dropped before he hit the ground, and then everything exploded. Gunfire cracked from both sides. Dust kicked up. Horses reared. Men shouted. Chaos ripped through the silence like it had been waiting for it. Jonah moved without thinking, years snapping back into place. Not a rancher. Not anymore. A shooter. He pulled Maeve down behind the fence line. Stay low. Another shot. Another man dropped. But they kept coming. Too many. Too close. Maeve grabbed his arm. Jonah, there's too many. I know. He checked the rifle. 3 rounds left. Not enough. He looked at her. Really looked this time. Not a stranger anymore. Not a burden. Something he had chosen. Listen to me, he said. No, she shook her head immediately. You're not doing that. I'm not asking. You take the back trail, he said. Ride east until the land breaks. There's a canyon. You hide there. I'm not leaving you. His voice dropped, hard. You stay, you die. And you? He didn't answer, because he didn't need to. A bullet hit the fence above them, splintering wood. Time ran out. Maeve's eyes locked onto his, and something shifted again. Not fear, not hesitation. Decision. I'm not running anymore, she said. Then don't, Jonah replied. Stand with me. They moved together, not separate, not running. Together. Jonah stepped out first, firing, Maeve right behind him, grabbing the fallen man's weapon with shaking hands, and pulling the trigger. Silence for half a second, then chaos again. But something had changed. They weren't prey anymore. 2 men down, 3. The rest hesitated. That was all it took. Jonah advanced, not backing down, not stopping, closing the distance, breaking the circle. The rider watched it unfold, his calm finally cracking. You should have stayed gone, he muttered. Jonah raised the rifle one last time. Yeah, he said. Probably. The rider dropped from the saddle, and just like that, it was over. The wind came back first, then the quiet. Real quiet. Not the kind that warned, the kind that followed. Maeve stood there, hands shaking, breath uneven, alive. Jonah lowered the rifle slowly, looked at the bodies, then at the open land beyond. They won't stop, she said quietly. No, he agreed, but neither will we. The ranch was no longer a place to hide. It was a line that had been drawn, and whatever came next, they would face it together. Because some lives don't change slowly, they change in a single moment when you decide not to walk away.